The Bentley sat silent beneath the blazing afternoon sun, worth more than most houses on the street. Around it stood mechanics, technicians, and assistants who had spent hours trying to bring the luxury machine back to life. Its owner, billionaire CEO Rowan Whitmore, was growing impatient by the minute. Then his eyes landed on a thin, exhausted man sweeping dust from the edge of the parking lot. What happened next would change two lives forever. Before we begin, if you believe kindness can appear in the most unexpected moments, take a second to like this video, comment, "Heart Kindness Story," share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that restore faith in humanity. The summer afternoon felt heavy over the city. Heat shimmered across the pavement outside Whitmore Technologies headquarters, where luxury cars lined the executive parking area. Employees hurried in and out of the glass building while security guards monitored every corner. Among them worked a maintenance employee named Silas Mercer. Silas was 42 years old, though the deep lines on his face made him appear older. Life had worn him down in ways that years alone could not explain. Every morning before sunrise he left his small apartment and worked multiple jobs just to keep food on the table. But lately, food was not his greatest concern. His 10-year-old son, Milo, had been diagnosed with a severe heart condition months earlier. Doctors had explained that surgery could save the boy's life, but the procedure cost far more than Silas could ever afford. Every day Silas carried the same burden. Every paycheck disappeared into hospital visits, medications, and bills. Every night he sat beside Milo's bed, pretending everything would be all right. And every night after his son fell asleep, he quietly cried in the kitchen where nobody could see. That afternoon, while sweeping leaves and debris from the executive parking lot, Silas noticed unusual activity around a dark blue Bentley. Several mechanics had surrounded the vehicle. The engine refused to start. The billionaire owner had an important meeting across town, and frustration was spreading rapidly among everyone involved. Rowan Whitmore was known throughout the city as a brilliant businessman. His company employed thousands of people and generated enormous profits every year. Yet despite his success, people described him as distant, demanding, and impossible to impress. As the minutes passed, more specialists arrived. They checked wiring. They tested batteries. They connected diagnostic equipment. Nothing worked. The expensive luxury car remained silent. Silas kept sweeping, trying not to stare. Workers like him did not belong in executive matters. His job was to stay invisible. But while moving near the Bentley, something caught his attention. Years earlier, before life became difficult, Silas had worked in a small auto repair shop owned by his father. He had learned countless lessons there. Most had faded with time. One had not. As he glanced beneath the open hood, he noticed a tiny detail others seemed to miss. A fuse compartment sat partially exposed. His eyes narrowed. Something looked wrong. Silas hesitated. What business did a janitor have questioning trained specialists? Still, the thought refused to leave his mind. Eventually he gathered enough courage to step closer. One mechanic immediately waved him away. Another laughed. Yet before Silas could retreat, Rowan Whitmore noticed the exchange. The CEO, already irritated, looked directly at him. The wealthy executive appeared tired and angry. Perhaps out of frustration, perhaps out of curiosity, he made a challenge that everyone nearby heard clearly. If the maintenance worker could start the Bentley, he would personally pay for his son's heart surgery. The crowd laughed. The promise sounded impossible. How could a janitor solve what experts could not? But Silas froze. His son's face instantly appeared in his mind. The hospital room. The medical bills. The fear. The possibility of losing the person he loved most in the world. For a moment the parking lot disappeared around him. He swallowed hard. Then he slowly approached the vehicle. Every eye followed him. Silas knelt near the engine compartment. His hands trembled. Not because of the car. Because hope had become dangerous. Hope had disappointed him too many times. Carefully he examined the fuse box. The mechanics watched with crossed arms. The executives exchanged amused glances. Silas opened the compartment. Inside sat dozens of tiny fuses. Most people would see nothing unusual. But years of forgotten experience suddenly returned. One fuse had a faint burn mark. Barely visible. Almost impossible to notice. A replacement fuse would cost approximately 12 cents. 12 cents. That tiny piece controlled an important electrical circuit. Without it, the Bentley would never start. Silas pointed it out. The mechanics looked skeptical. One removed the fuse. Another tested it. The reading confirmed it was damaged. Silence spread across the parking lot. Someone located a replacement. The new fuse clicked into place. Everyone held their breath. The key turned. The engine roared to life instantly. For several seconds nobody moved. The impossible had happened. The luxury car purred smoothly as if nothing had ever been wrong. The mechanics stared in disbelief. Executives exchanged stunned looks. And Rowan Whitmore simply stood there, speechless. A 12-cent fuse. Hours of work. Thousands of dollars in diagnostic equipment. Specialists with decades of experience. And the answer had been sitting inside a tiny plastic compartment all along. But what affected Rowan most was not the repair itself. It was the expression on Silas's face. The maintenance worker was not smiling. He was not celebrating. He looked terrified. Terrified that the promise might not be real. Terrified to believe his son could actually be saved. That look stayed with Rowan long after the crowd dispersed. Later that evening, curiosity led him to investigate. He reviewed employee records. He discovered Silas's attendance history. Perfect. He found reports from supervisors. Hardworking. Reliable. Respectful. Never complained. Then he learned about Milo. The surgeries. The hospital visits. The financial struggles. The unpaid medical balances. For the first time in years, numbers on a page stopped feeling like numbers. They became people. That night Rowan drove past neighborhoods he had never visited. He saw apartment buildings where many of his employees lived. He saw children playing in parking lots. He saw families carrying groceries upstairs. The city looked different from behind the tinted windows of a luxury car. For the first time in a long time, he wondered how many silent battles existed beneath the surface of ordinary lives. The next morning, Silas arrived at work expecting disappointment. People made promises all the time. Life had taught him that. As he pushed his cleaning cart toward the building entrance, he received a call from the hospital. His heart nearly stopped. The administrator sounded emotional. A complete payment had been received. Not a partial payment. Not a loan. The entire amount. Every surgical expense. Every hospital charge. Every treatment cost. Covered. Silas leaned against a wall as tears filled his eyes. He could barely breathe. The surgery was scheduled immediately. For the first time in months, hope felt real. Weeks later, Rowan quietly visited the hospital. He expected a brief meeting. Instead he witnessed something unforgettable. Milo sat upright in bed recovering after a successful operation. The boy's smile filled the room with warmth. His small body looked stronger already. Machines monitored his progress. Doctors described an excellent prognosis. Silas sat beside him holding his hand. The father's eyes contained gratitude too large for words. Watching them together awakened something inside Rowan. Success had given him wealth. Achievement had earned him recognition. But standing in that hospital room revealed a different kind of value. The value of changing a life. The value of relieving suffering. The value of helping someone stand again when they had nearly fallen forever. Over the following months, Rowan began making unexpected changes. Employee assistance programs expanded. Medical emergency funds were created. Scholarships appeared for workers' children. Counseling services became available. Financial hardship grants increased. Many employees never learned the true reason behind these changes. But the seed had been planted on a hot afternoon beside a disabled Bentley. One tiny fuse had exposed a much larger problem. People were struggling quietly. And sometimes all it took was one person paying attention. A year later, Milo returned to school healthy and energetic. He played soccer. He laughed with friends. He dreamed about becoming an engineer someday. His future no longer depended on impossible medical bills. Silas continued working, but something had changed inside him too. The fear that once followed him everywhere had finally loosened its grip. He no longer woke every morning wondering if he would lose his son. Instead, he woke with gratitude. The kind that transforms ordinary days into gifts. One afternoon, nearly a year after the Bentley incident, Rowan encountered Silas in the parking lot again. The same sunlight reflected across rows of vehicles. The same city noise echoed in the distance. Yet both men were different now. Neither spoke much. Words seemed unnecessary. Some moments are too meaningful for conversation. They simply nodded at one another. One had offered a chance. The other had taken it. And together they had proven that life can change in a single unexpected moment. Sometimes miracles do not arrive with grand announcements. Sometimes they arrive hidden inside a 12-cent fuse. Sometimes they arrive disguised as kindness. Sometimes they arrive through ordinary people who choose to notice what others overlook. And sometimes the smallest act becomes the turning point in someone else's entire future. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe for more inspiring stories that remind us of the goodness still present in the world. Special request: comment below with the word hope if you believe one small act of kindness can change a person's life forever. As the sun set over the city that evening, Milo laughed in a nearby park while his father watched proudly from a bench. Across town, Rowan Whitmore looked out from his office window and thought about how close he had come to missing the most important lesson of his life. The value of a luxury car had once seemed enormous. But the value of a human life was infinitely greater. And all because one struggling father reached for a 12-cent fuse. The Bentley started that day. But something even more important started too. Compassion. And unlike any machine in the world, its power never stopped running.